هيدا حقكم وصرتوا عليه، الله يوفقكم.
Good afternoon. On this Tuesday, April 22nd, I'm Yumna Naufad. These are today's headlines. Politicians intensify deliberations ahead of a parliamentary session to elect a new president as no candidate secures a two-thirds majority yet. 8 trucks head to the remote village of Tufail on the Lebanese-Syrian border to deliver food packages and fuel oil to its residents. And new claims emerge that President Assad's regime may have launched attacks with an industrial chemical earlier this month, despite an international agreement to eliminate Syria's chemical arsenal. Politicians intensified deliberations ahead of a parliamentary sessions to elect a new president, as none of the presumed candidates have yet to secure a two-thirds majority. Several blocs have confirmed their attendance at Wednesday's session, including lawmakers from Jumblat and Bidis blocs. Lebanese forces, the Kataib Party, and their allies in the Future Movement have also said they would attend the legislative sessions where MPs are expected to cast their votes for their preferred candidate. None of the candidates, including those who consider themselves natural nominees, such as MP Michel Aoun and Kataib head Amin Jmail, have secured the two-thirds majority needed for the first round of the parliamentary electoral sessions. But he has described MP Michel Aoun, leader of the FPM, as the March 8 coalition's candidate, but the former general has said he would only run for the post as a consensus candidate. 8 trucks head to the remote village of Tufail on the Lebanese-Syrian border to deliver food packages and fuel oil to its residents through the backing of armed forces. Tufail has been isolated after the only road that leads to the town came under the control of the Syrian government. Tufail is now home to 3,000 Lebanese and some 5,000 Syrian refugees. Major General Mohammed Khair, the Secretary General of the Higher Relief Council, denied there were armed Syrian rebels in Tufail. The Mufti of Baalbek and Hanmel also thanked Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnout for his efforts to help the town's residents. Mashnout said that if the plan does not work, he would take the case to the cabinet and file a complaint with the United Nations Security Council over the besieged village. The Future Movement affiliated minister defended his coordination with Hezbollah over Tufail, saying his priority was to manage the humanitarian impact of the crisis. Still on Mr. Interior Minister Nuhad Mashnout, he is criticizing the use of weapons in internal Palestinian strife, and he said Lebanon has a responsibility to protect Palestinian refugees. He added the Lebanese state is the real protector of Palestinians. Rival Palestinian groups have clashed recently in the impoverished Ain al-Hilwi camp outside of Saida and elsewhere. At least 8 people were killed, including the commander of a Palestinian armed group, in clashes that broke out in the Miyamiya refugee camp in Ain al-Hilwi earlier this month. Prime Minister Tamam Salam hopes that the parliament will elect a new president on Wednesday and stresses the differences between the rival parties are not on the concept of resistance, but on the use of its arms in Lebanon. The Lebanese Forces Chief Sami Jaja is the sole politician who has officially announced his candidacy, according to Salam. He denied there was foreign intervention in the election process, as with former presidents, but he said that with no doubt there was some foreign influence. Prime Minister stressed that his cabinet does not run a crisis, but runs a country. The security achievement was the result of consensus between the political parties, he said, adding that without it, there would not have been any possibility to cut the road to outlaws. Authorities are implementing a security plan in Tripoli and the eastern Bekaa Valley, which has so far led to the arrest of dozens of criminals. New claims have emerged that President Bashar al-Assad's regime may have launched attacks with an industrial chemical earlier this month, despite an international agreement to eliminate Syria's chemical arsenal. The latest evidence cited by U.S. and French authorities comes as Syria plans to hold a June 3rd presidential poll, which the United Nations and the Syrian opposition have slammed as a farce that flies in the face of efforts to end the country's 3-year war. The revelation follows Sunday's announcement by French President François Hollande that his country had information but no proof that Assad's regime was still using chemical weapons. Meanwhile, Syria announced on Monday that it will hold a June 3rd presidential election expected to return Assad to office. The UN condemned the announcement, warning it would torpedo a political resolution of the conflict. The opposition is still insisting that Assad step down and play no role in Syria's future, rejecting the election as nothing but a masquerade. Chlorine was probably the chemical used this month in an opposition-dominated area of Syria, where rebel forces are seeking to oust Syrian President Assad, according to a spokesman for the White House. Jay Carney said that there were no indications of the use of toxic industrial chemical, probably chlorine, in Kafr Zita, a town in the northwestern part of Syria, and that the U.S. is trying to find out what happened.
Indications of the use of a toxic industrial chemical, probably chlorine, in Syria this month, in the opposition-dominated village of Kafr Zita. We are examining allegations that the government was responsible. We take all allegations of the use of chemicals in combat very seriously, and we are working to determine what happened. We will continue consulting and sharing information with key partners, including, of course, at the OPCW. No, he's making a mockery of his own pretensions to being a democratically elected leader. A presidential referendum, which is what this would be, is a parody of democracy and would have no credibility or legitimacy within Syria or outside of Syria. And we're now, I believe, at roughly 65–67% of those weapons being turned over for destruction.
Coming up next, Vice President Joe Biden says the United States stands by Ukraine's new pro-Western leaders. Stay with us. Welcome back. Baghdad residents assessed damage to their property after a spate of bombings in the Iraqi capital a day earlier killed at least 30 and wounded 70. The Sadr city and Karada were among Baghdad neighborhoods targeted in a series of blasts on Monday. Eyewitness of the Sadr city bombing called upon the Iraqi government to put a stop to such violence. The increase in deadly shootings and bombings has become the Shia-led government's most serious challenge as the nation prepares to head to the polls on April 30th, the first vote in Iraq since the U.S. Army withdrawal in 2011. A Yemeni military police colonel shot dead was the fourth officer to be killed in suspected militant attacks in the capital Sana'a in 2 days, according to an official. Similar attacks in the past have been blamed on Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, a powerful local affiliate of the global terror network that has been the target of a U.S. drone campaign and repeated military operations by the weak central government. 2 armed men on a motorbike opened fire at Colonel Abdulrazak Jabali, head of the training at a military police academy, killing him, and he walked the work along airport road, a Yemeni official said, on condition of anonymity. Another officer named Faris As-Suwaidi, who worked in security at the Sana'a airport, was shot dead in front of the terminal this morning, also by gunmen on a motorbike. The latest attacks targeting security forces came after nearly 70 suspected al-Qaeda militants were killed in a 2-day air campaign by U.S. drones and Yemeni warplanes. The Palestinians played down a threat to dismantle the Western-backed Palestinian Authority, which is Israel's interlocutor, if U.S.-sponsored peace talks remain deadlocked. Palestinian negotiators had warned that they may hand responsibility for governing the occupied territories back to Israel if peace talks remain stalled, according to a senior Palestinian official. He said the Palestinians had told U.S. peace envoy Martin Indyk that unless Israel releases Palestinian prisoners as agreed and frees the settlement building, they could dismantle the authority, which was set up following the Oslo Peace Accord in the 1990s and was intended to pave the way towards the establishment of an independent state. U.S. State Department spokesman Jennifer Psaki criticized the threat as extreme and warned that any such move would affect American aid to the Palestinians. On the Israeli side, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused the Palestinian Authority of endangering the peace process. In other world news, South Sudanese rebels rejected UN accusations they massacred hundreds of civilians in ethnic killings when they captured a key oil town last week, turning the blame instead on the government. UN human rights investigators said that after rebels wrestled the oil hub of Bentiu from government forces in heavy battles last Tuesday, the gunmen spent 2 days hunting down those who they believed opposed them. The UN report said the killings continued after the army had fled the town, with the rebels celebrating the capture of Bentiu in a statement issued shortly after midday on the first day, April 15th. In the main mosque alone, more than 200 civilians were reportedly killed and over 400 wounded, according to the UN. It said fighters took to the radio to urge men to rape women from the opposition ethnic group and said rival groups should be forced out of town. Vice President Joe Biden told Ukrainian political leaders that the United States stands with them against humiliating threats and encouraged them to root out corruption as they rebuild their government. Biden also met with acting Ukrainian President Alexander Turchinov and planned a later meeting with acting Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk. In the most highly level visit of a U.S. official since the crisis erupted in Ukraine, Biden told leaders from various political parties that he brings a message of support from President Barack Obama as they face a historic opportunity to usher in reforms. The group included 3 candidates running for president in the May 25th election, most notably billionaire chocolate magnate and frontrunner Petro Poroshenko. Biden told the lawmakers a priority for the U.S. to help them become independent from Russian energy supplies. Still making headlines, the confirmed death toll now from the South Korea ferry disaster crossed 100 as dive teams, under growing pressure from bereaved relatives, accelerate the grim task of recovering 100 more bodies from the submerged vessel. Improved weather conditions and calm seas spurred their efforts, but underwater visibility is still very poor, requiring divers to grope their way blindly through the corridor and cabins of the ferry that capsized and sank last Wednesday. Nearly 1 week into the rescue and recovery effort of one of South Korea's worst peacetime disasters, close to 200 of the 476 people who were aboard the Sewol, most of them school children, are still unaccounted for. The official toll stood at 108, with 194 still missing. The distraught victims' families gathered in the morning at the harbor of Jindo Island, not far from the disaster site, awaiting the increasingly frequent arrival of boats with the most recently recovered bodies. Leslie Mann and her other women co-stars, including musician-turning-actress Nicki Minaj and actresses Cameron Diaz and Kate Upton, at the film's stateside premiere held in the Westwood section of Los Angeles. Well, they were a quartet, and the 4 looked like something of a fashion dream team, as if they'd been coordinated by a stylist. But that wasn't the case, according to newcomer Upton, in a strapless silver Dolce cocktail dress. The other woman casts Diaz as the girlfriend of a man she discovers is married, but the table is turned on Casanova when the other woman and the wife become friends, only to discover there is another woman.
I don't hate you at all. I got all of that out of my system with that one.
How can you be so amazing? You could be friends with your husband's mistress.
Yeah, it's like a dream come true.
Ignore her. She's just working through some stuff right now. She's got troubled. But you smell amazing. What is that?
I think it's just sweat.
Sure. Purple shirt. Purple shirt. Scoot down. Disappear.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. We all have, our own styles, and we all kind of were drawn to similar outfits that really coordinated together. But we do discuss what we're wearing, but not just in a curious way, just in a girl's way.
We did have so much fun. I mean, we were like, I consider Kate and Cameron really close friends. It's Monique Lillier, and I like it because it's comfortable and pretty, and I like these colors. And shoot, I don't know. I'm not like a fashion person, but I really like it. I think it's beautiful.
Stella McCartney, because you know what, it's effortless, and I really kind of just wanted to go very easy and not try too hard, because I just didn't feel like it today. I was just like, I just want to wear something that's like carefree and I don't have to worry about. And so I put on Stella's, who I love as a designer and as a person. Talk about a great woman and girl's girl. Stella McCartney is that above and beyond. So yeah, I'm happy to be wearing it.
Marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Politicians intensify deliberations ahead of a parliamentary session to elect a new president as no candidate secures a two-thirds majority. 8 trucks head to the remote village of Tufail on the Lebanese-Syrian border to deliver food packages and fuel oil to its residents. And new claims emerged that President Bashar al-Assad's regime may have launched attacks with an industrial chemical earlier this month, despite an international agreement not to do so. Those are your Tuesday headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Nelfa, wishing you a good night.